Thank you, Linda, and thank you all for being here. This is great. This is how the Republican Party should work. I'm going to try and go back and answer a few questions. First, I don't care what the Ohio Restaurant Association did, the endorsement. You know what that means? That means that there are just people inside the organization, big restaurant owners, who have gotten something back from Mike Dewine, and of course are going to endorse him. All right? It's like the Ohio Republican Party endorsed Mike Dewine. Who cares? Who cares? I mean, it was 36 to 26, and 19 members of the Ohio Republican Party are either paid or make money off of the state or lobbying Mike Dewine. 19 members. So, you know what? I don't think they really endorsed him. I think what they did is they bought that endorsement, and that's okay. The difference really comes down to all of you. And I'm going to tell you a little story before I tell you about myself. On Saturday, we go into Cuyahoga County, and it's interesting because Cuyahoga County is doing an endorsement. And I don't believe in endorsements, but I will tell you one thing. If there is an endorsement, I'm going to go fight for it. So we go into Cuyahoga County, 300-some people. They already get up on the stage, and they go, we did our steering committee report, and we are recommending the endorsement of Mike Dewine, right? Now, Mike Dewine's there, and his campaign manager's there. And I walk up to his campaign manager, I go, you guys must think you got this sewed up. And he goes, well, we feel really good about it. I said, wow, okay. I said, he goes, but anything can happen, right? So literally, the people then stepped up and said, we want to remove Mike Dewine from the endorsement and replace it with Jim Renacci. And there was a little bit of a back and forth, and for the next 2.5 hours, every move could be made to stop it from happening. But here's what I'm proud to tell you. That in the end, they removed Mike Dewine from the endorsement, replaced it with Jim Renacci, and we were endorsed with 63% of the vote of that entity. That's what the people can do versus the establishment. So I'm happy to tell you, while I'm on the endorsement side, that Joe and I have been endorsed by Cuyahoga County, one of the largest parties, one of the largest counties in the state for Republican voters. Believe it or not, it's a Democrat state, but it's got the most Republican voters, second most Republican voters. We also have been endorsed by Butler County and Claremont County, which are two of the top Republican vote counties in the state as well. So we're happy to say we've been able to get 3 of the largest counties to endorse us with Republicans. Now, talk about Dewine. He got the ORP, he got Franklin County, which is Columbus. He got the vice chair of their party's county, Columbiana County, to endorse him. I mean, that was a joke. I mean, as I drive into Columbiana County, Lisbon, Ohio, there's a big sign on the Republican Party headquarters, 4x8. Dewine for governor, Timken for Senate. And guess who they endorsed? Dewine and Timken. Figures, right? Didn't even allow us to watch the vote count, which was problematic as well. And then the third county that endorsed Dewine, I think it was Marion County. I had to chuckle because we didn't even know they were endorsing. I called the chairman and said, are you endorsing tonight at 7 o'clock? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, how come you didn't let us know? And he said, well, because it's in the minutes, you should have figured it out. So they endorsed Dewine too. I don't care about endorsements. I believe the only poll and the only endorsement that matters is on May 3rd when you all go out and vote, and that's why we're here. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Look, I came here 39 years ago because Ohio was the place to go. I grew up in western Pennsylvania. When you graduated from high school, you either went to the coal mines or the steel mills. That's where I was going. That's where I was going. My mother begged me to go to college, but we didn't have any money. I mean, I always say, and you heard Joe's story, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted him to be my lieutenant governor. The only difference between Joe and I is we didn't have any money, but I had mom and dad. And I had the family unit, and my mom begged me to go to college. And I never forget telling my mom, you know, if I go to college, I gotta work. And she said, well, that'll be fine. Yeah, great. I ended up working 3 jobs to get through college. I drove a tractor trailer 2 days a week, delivering building supplies across the state into Ohio. The other job I had on the summertime was I was on a road crew, and then I also was a mechanic. And I tell you, that's an interesting story because I was a mechanic in a Chevy dealership. And what I always said someday would be the greatest thing in the world for me, it would be to own a Chevy dealership someday. Now, I can tell you my parents didn't have any money. My dad lost his job when I was 8 years old. We did the powdered milk and all the things to survive. But at the same time, my mom and dad used to always tell me, number one, anything's possible in this great country if you do the right things, work hard and do the right things. That was so true. The other thing my mom and dad used to tell me, because there were rich people in our town, not that many. I got to tell you, not that many, but there was one rich guy. And when people would point to the guy and say, that guy's rich, you know what my mom and dad would say? They'd say, you can be rich too if you do the right things and work hard. And that's what our country gives us, the opportunity to do that. And we forget that too often. Now, I came to Ohio 39 years ago with $200 in my bank account. I sold my car, so I had some money, and I started my first business. I went from one business to 60 businesses over the next 30 years. I created over 1,500 jobs in this great state, and I employed over 3,000 people. And I can tell you, there were times where it got tough, and there were times where I didn't sleep, but I understood that if you work hard and do the right thing, anything's possible. And here's the other thing I'm proud of. While I was going up the ladder, my dad used to always tell me, son, when you're going up the ladder, never forget to look back and pull the other person up with you. And I'm telling you, if you go around this state, you'll see that I've pulled 30 or 40 people up who are now have lived the American dream too, and are 100% supportive of me because of it. It is not wrong to live the American dream. And when I hear people talk about it, they say, well, Renacci's rich. Do you know what I tell them? You gotta go back and look at where I started. You gotta go back and look where I started. Everybody should have that opportunity. Opportunity, not right, opportunity. And I can tell you that I lost many a day's sleep, and many times I was not with my children or my wife because I was fighting for the employees I had and the business side as well. I will tell you, when I came here, I was engaged to be married. I'm proud to say that 6 months after I got to Ohio and got started, I got married, my wife came up here, and this year we will celebrate 39 years together. Now that's important too, especially in times where divorce is so easy. My dad used to always say, son, that's a contract. You just signed a contract with your wife, and that's a contract. And I'll never forget those words because, look, marriage is tough sometimes. But I got to tell you, I have a great wife. While I was on the road, she took care of our kids. We have 3 great kids who have all become very successful in their own right. And I will also tell you that none of those kids ever got a dime, even through high school. They had to work for everything they got. Even though I had a business and even though I was successful, I told them, listen, at some point in time, you need to work hard and do the right things. And they have, and they've done, and they've become successful. So I came here 39 years ago, as I told you, started my first business. And I really believed that anything was possible. I always believed in giving back. Always believed in giving back. So I was a baseball coach. I was a firefighter in my community. I was like that. I was a businessman, a firefighter, and a baseball coach. So there were times that I'd leave my office to go to a fire. There were times I was coaching baseball. I'd go to a fire. I was always giving back to my community. And one day, as Joe said to you, our community was losing money. It was losing about $1.8 million on an $80 million budget. And business leaders around the city said to me, would you do this? And I said, no, not going to happen. Leave me alone. Not going to happen. But after a lot of pressure, I said, listen, here's what I'll do. I'll step in. I'll do this. But after I fix it, I'm leaving. I don't want to do this. I want to stay with my family. I want to do other things with my family. I want to continue my businesses. So I did. Now, people call that politics. I can tell you what. Do you know what a mayor of Wadsworth makes? $1,500 a year. Now, if you think that's a career job, go to it. All right? That's community service. No matter what anybody tells you, that's community service. So when people say, oh, he's a career politician, he was a mayor. You know what? If you call $1,500 a year a career, I don't know. I don't know. That's giving back. But I can tell you, as soon as I fixed the city, I jump back into the business world. I had a Chevy dealership in Wadsworth. My dream had come true. Remember, I was a mechanic. I now owned my own Chevy dealership, and I loved it. I used to go back to mechanics. They'd say, hey, give me a crescent wrench or give me a 7/18, whatever. I throw it to them. They go, that's the only owner in the world that could get under this car and also do the mechanicking on the car. And they knew it, and they appreciated it, and I was happy. And I cut a deal with the General Motors at that time to build a brand new location out on the highway. And that was in 2008. I signed the paperwork. I bought an option on the land. Life was good. And then in 2009, how many people remember when General Motors was taken over by the federal government? So the Obama administration took over General Motors, and boom. Lo and behold, General Motors says, you don't have anything to worry about, until I got the letter. In June of 2009, it said, you're no longer going to be part of the General Motors family. Now I got to tell you, we can talk about masks, and we can talk about vaccines, and they're all important. But I'll tell you what you got to talk about. When the federal government steps in and takes something from you, that's the difference. That's a big difference. And I'll tell you what, I lost $3 million and 59 employees lost their job over that. And what I did before, I fought, and I called my congressman and I said, you need to get here and help me, because I didn't know how else to fix it. My congressman comes in, he's a Democrat congressman, just won election in the district, and he says, I can help you. I'm going to go back to Washington. I'm close with Nancy Pelosi. I'm going to get you the dealership back. The problem is, in July of 2009, there was a vote on the House floor to reinstate all dealerships in the country, including mine. Now remember, I already been kicked in the stomach because they were taken away from me. I watched the vote on the floor, and when it came up for him to vote, he voted against it. So that was a second kick in the stomach. Now, you know, a lot of people say, I'm going to Washington, or I'm getting into politics because I'm an outsider and I'm the one who's going to make a difference. No, I got into politics because something was taken away from me, and at the same time, 59 other employees lost their job.
Did that cut out?
It's back. So, I'll never forget, and by the way, I always chuckle about this. I did go to Washington, I talked to some people, and they told me, I had a full beard and mustache. And they told me, listen, and this is a true story. They said, and anybody has a beard and mustache, I'm sorry when I say this. I was with a pastor the other day and I said this. They told me in Washington, anybody with a beard and mustache, you gotta shave, because you can't be trusted if you're hiding behind your beard and mustache. Now I tell you that story because I went back home and my wife said, what did they tell you? And I said, well, they said you can't be trusted with a beard and mustache. And she goes, oh, don't listen to them. So a couple of days passed, and next thing you know, I'm walking down the hallway to go sit down at the kitchen table, and I'm fully shaved. And she said, oh no, because she knew that I was running. And I actually jumped in the race. I went around that district, and I'm proud to say 14 months later, I defeated a sitting congressman and took him out of that job that he should not have been in. And I'm proud to say I did that. Now, got to Washington, got to Washington, and the first thing I found out when I got there was, I'm sitting here, Thomas Jefferson, and Franklin. What the hell am I doing here? And then I looked around and said, what the hell are they doing here? Because the problem is, we elect people with gimmicks. They wear certain clothes, or they say something, or they shake our hand, or they come to an event and they walk up to us and smile, and we say, I'm voting for that person. The problem is, everybody has a record whether you're in politics or not politics. And if you really dig deeper, you'll find that most people that say, well, I'm running because I don't have any record. Yeah, they got a record. They got a record. And that's why we have 435 people in Washington who can't get anything done, and 100 senators who can't get anything done. Here's the problem. After 6 years in Washington, I also realized not only was it a broken place, I needed to get out of there, because anybody who stays in Washington and realizes that you go there on Monday, you come back on Friday, you get nothing done, you're away from your children, you're away from your family, and they like it, they should not be there. They should not be there. If you go back to the class of 2010, you're going to see that we were the biggest takeover of the House of Representatives. The problem is there's about 7 people left. You know why? The good people all left, including me. Because I said, I'm not sticking around. Why would I stick around in a place like that? The only place we're going to fix our country, the only place we're going to fix our country is have strong governors who understand how to change the system and work with the House and Senate to get things done. And that's what we need to do. So, after 6 years, I said I'm coming back home. And I jumped into the governor's race. How many remember I jumped into the governor's race? I jumped into the governor's race because I believed that Dewine was not the right governor, and nor should he be governor. And I was in that race for a short period of time until Josh Mandel stepped out. How many people remember Josh Mandel stepping out of the race? Josh Mandel stepped out of the race. Right, he stepped out of the Senate race, and lo and behold, I started getting phone calls. You got to get in. Same old thing. Sounds like a repeat message, right? You got to get in. You got to get in the Senate race. Well, guess what? You know why they wanted me in the Senate race? Because they wanted me to walk away from Dewine. I was going to beat him. I was going to beat him. The problem was, I said, I made a fatal mistake. It was on a Friday. In fact, it was January 5th. January 3rd. I'll never forget it. On January 3rd, I told somebody, leave me alone. Don't bother me unless you can get the President of the United States to call me and ask me to get in the race. Well, little did I know that on Monday, the President of the United States was going to call me. And he did. And he asked me to come to the Oval Office. I met with him. He said, Renacci, I need you to get in the Senate race. I said, I don't want to do this. And he said to me, now he was going to endorse me for governor back then. He said to me, I'm not going to endorse you for governor. I'm going to endorse you for Senate. I need you to get in the Senate race for your country and for me, him. And I got to tell you, I walked out of the Oval Office, went out on the corner with my chief of staff and said, I think I have a problem. Because I don't think I can, at this point in time, that I can say no to the President of the United States. Now, I jumped into that race, and I spent, look, I only had 5 months. But here's what I would tell you. I'm a problems and stats guy. I did that for my country and for my president. Sherrod Brown already had $25 million in the bank. I had 0. I had to start up against 25. He spent $33.5 million to keep that seat. I raised 4 and spent 4. I only lost by 150,000 net votes. That's a pretty small margin. If you go back to people who have run statewide before, how many people remember George Voinovich? George Voinovich, the first time he ran, he got spanked by 15 points. All right? By the way, Mike Dewine got spanked by 12 or 14 points against Sherrod Brown, too, in 2006. We forget that. But I only lost by 150,000 net votes, and I got zero help from the party, from the state party, or the federal party. And I'm pretty proud of that. I know I had somebody ask me the other day, well, you lost to Sherrod Brown. How are you going to win this time? Hey, wait a minute. I lost in a general election. The first time I ever ran statewide, which is a problem, and I only lost by 150,000 votes out of 4.4 million. And I was outspent 33.5 million to 4 million. That's not going to happen this time. That's number one. Number two, I don't know if you're welcome to go back. Sherrod Brown got more votes than any Republican that ran that year. Sherrod Brown could have been anything he wanted, from governor to lieutenant governor to senator to whatever he wanted. He got enough votes to beat any Republican. And I'll turn it back. Don't forget, Mike Dewine won that race. He had to spend $35 million against $14 million, and he only won by 82,000 net votes. He was very close to losing. So let's keep all that in mind when we talk about this next election. We have a governor who basically runs like a Republican in the primary, shifts to the center in a general election, and then moves left of center when he governs. We know it. We have a history. He's got a record, and yet we still elected him. Shame on all of us. Shame on. Now somebody would say, well, I only had 2 choices. Nah, when you're voting for two Democrats, you got one choice. Just remember that. Sometimes we have Democrats that just have an R after their name. I mean, you have to really think about it. The way Governor Dewine operates as a governor, he operates no better than a Democrat, right? Now, we've seen that. And in 2019, he takes over, and what's the first thing he does? Raises our gas tax. What's the second thing he does? He says we're going to bring refugees into Ohio. Who's fighting Governor Dewine in 2019? Who's fighting him in 2019? Who was with me in 2019? A few people. See, people forget that. There was one guy still in this state fighting Mike Dewine in 2019. Even fighting him so much that I got a call from the Trump administration. I got a call from the Trump administration that said, hey, we need to win Ohio. What are you doing? And I said, well, if you need to win Ohio, you better stay away from Mike Dewine. And that's true. But they were mad because I was fighting. When I hear people say, where was Renacci? Where was everybody else? Where was everybody else? I was fighting him on refugees. I was fighting him on his tax proposal. I was fighting him. Does anybody realize in 2019 that he was already told that the unemployment system was going to proposal? I was fighting him. Does anybody realize in 2019 that he was already told that the unemployment system was going to fail? It was going to fail. He had the federal government tell him this, and he had the state government tell him this, and guess what he did? Nothing. And all it said was the slightest downturn in our economy and our systems are going to fail. Guess what? In March of 2020, we had more than a small downturn. We had COVID. And that downturn caused the unemployment system to totally tank under Governor Dewine's watch and Lieutenant Governor Busev's watch. And what happened? We lost $3 billion in the meantime. $3 billion were lost because of their mishandling. Right there is the number one reason you should never re-elect Mike Dewine. Right there. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of other reasons. That's just for a start. The raising the taxes and asking for refugees to come in, those also add to it. Three things happened in 2019 that already say why you should not re-elect Mike Dewine. 2020 was a whole nother story. Mask mandates, curfews, shutting down businesses, what's essential, what's not essential, what businesses are essential. Shame on us for letting the governor tell us what was essential, what wasn't essential. What we should have done was remove him from office right then and there. He operated our state just like New York, just like California. He operated like a Democrat. He laughed with the Democrats. He was the first to shut everything down. And while he was shutting down everything, he did not stand up to shut down abortion facilities. Think about that. And when it comes to life, he hired Amy Ackerman, who is a pro-abortion medical director, and when she did finally step down, thank God, do you know that the second person he appointed was also pro-abortion too? That guy only lasted a couple weeks because people said, you better get rid of that person. So that right there is a problem in the administration. That's the fourth reason you shouldn't rehire him. The fifth reason is masks and mandates and all those other things. So we got 6 reasons now why we shouldn't hire him again. But think about weddings and nursing homes. If you went to a wedding, yeah, that's about right. When you went to a wedding, there was a crash. You couldn't dance. You could sit at the picnic table, but only with your family members. You could cut the cake, but you couldn't eat it. Think about some of the crazy stuff. We were living in Ohio, and when it came to your mother or father or relative in a nursing home, shame on any governor for saying you cannot go see them. Shame on you. And when they died, you could not have a funeral. Those are the things that we just lived through with Mike Dewine. Now, I'm going to tell you what he would say if he was up here. All right? Because I've already had It's funny, he's only been to one Republican event, and that was in Cuyahoga County. He got booed. But I will tell you, here's what he said. And I've also been to 2 other events where Lieutenant Governor Husted showed up. They got the same speech, so I got it down pat. Number one, they'll say they are the most pro-life governor, lieutenant governor in the country. And you know what I tell them? They are not pro-life. They cannot take that now anymore. They cannot appoint a pro-abortion medical director and say they're pro-life. They can't fight to keep abortion clinics open. They should be fighting to close them. He is not pro-life. Joe and I will be the most pro-life governor, lieutenant governor in the entire United States. We're also, just this week, we've been endorsed by 8 of the 9, or Joe say this, 8 of the 9 pro-life groups. There is one pro-life group called the it should be the Ohio Republican Party. It's the Ohio Right to Life. The Ohio Right to Life, the director of the Ohio Right to Life is appointed by Governor Dewine, and one of the board members is also appointed by Mike Dewine. So again, they are going to protect themselves. I told them that. They weren't happy with me, but I don't care. You know what the largest pro-life group is in the state? The one that endorsed Joe and I. So we are happy to say we have the pro-life endorsement because we will be the strongest pro-life team in the country. Number two, this governor has the nerve to say that he's pro-Second Amendment because he passed constitutional carry. He said that on Saturday. And while I was standing there, you know what I said? It's shame on the governor for saying that. Because just because he passed the constitutional carry, he's losing, and he knows it. He forgot to tell you that in 2019, he pushed for the most anti-gun piece of legislation, the red flag laws, and when that was not able to get passed, he tried to stick it in the budget in 2020 as well. He is not Second Amendment material. I tell people, would you rather have a guy who vacillates, by the way, F-rated by the NRA when he was in Congress? Would you rather have a guy who talks about the Second Amendment, or would you rather have a guy who carries a gun every day? That's me. Number 3, he will tell you he's the most business-friendly state in the country. Yet we are ranked 47th in business friendliness. We are ranked anywhere from 35th to 50th in just about every category you get. Taxation, all those things. But let me tell you what we are number 1 in. Corruption. Ohio is the number 1 state for corruption. And remember, First Energy has all kind of ties to Mike Dewine. Now here's the sad thing. The FBI and the DOJ has said they're not going to try that case until January of 2023. You know why? They do not want to get involved in the political race, but they should. Because Randuzzo, who was appointed by Governor Dewine, got a $4.2 million contract while he was working for Dewine just to make sure House Bill 6 got passed. And Dewine also has 2 other people that were in his administration that had to resign because of their ties to First Energy. Dewine is the reason we are now ranked the most corruption state in the country. We are also in the top 5 in human trafficking. Dewine doesn't even talk about that. And we're also number 1 in the state in overdose deaths and drug addiction and deaths due to depression. I mean, think about it. We're number 1 in that statistic too. So we got some number 1s we're not proud of. We got 35 to 50s that we got to change. That's a serious problem that Mike Dewine doesn't want to talk about. He will also tell you that he cut taxes. And yet Wallet just came out and said we are one of the 5 worst cities in the country for taxes. We are 49th in income tax, and all the other statistics. We are one of the worst states. I can tell you what we're also bad in. We're bad in spending. We're in the top 10 states in spending. We spend, by the way, I came out with this in 2019, and now some of the other candidates are using it, God bless them. I mean, sometimes when they use your information, that's flattering. But in 2019, I started to watch. In Florida, which is twice our size, we spend $80 billion. Our budget is $80 billion. Florida is twice our size population, and their budget is $88 billion. North Carolina and Georgia, who are about the same size as us, their budget is $45 billion and $50 billion, yet ours is $80 billion. I'm going to tell you right now, we have to fix that. So here are a couple things that Joe and I are going to do. Number one, I promise you this: we will make sure that day one, we've got a couple things. But day one, we start looking at our spending and get us back to where it needs to be. Because Joe and I also want to put a consumption tax in place, which, by the way, I guarantee you most in this room don't understand it. It's a very complicated tax, but in the end, and I know people say, oh, I understand it's a sales tax. No, it's not. It actually has layers in it. But a pure consumption tax is something that can drive the economy. And in the end, if we can get a consumption tax in this state by driving our spending down. Now, I can tell you right now, I've already done the work. Can't do it today. We spend too much. We've got to get our spending down. Joe and I's first job, in fact, Joe's first job, will be to get spending down to $60 billion a year so we can implement a consumption tax and make Ohio one of the strongest states in the country. Now, you may ask, why a consumption tax? Well, guess what other states have a consumption tax? Tennessee, Florida, Texas. And what's so interesting about Florida, Texas, and Tennessee? They're one of the top 10 states in the country. They're one of the top 10 states in the country. But here's the other thing we're going to do, because we've got to get our economy rolling again. We have to get back so that 24-year-old who shows up in Ohio can live the American dream like some 24-year-old did 39 years ago. What we need to do, number one, is we got an education system that is going to be number one on our list that needs overhauled. I got to tell you, as I travel the state, we are going to not only overhaul it, we're going to eliminate CRT, we're going to eliminate social emotional learning, and we're going to eliminate comprehensive sex education. It is amazing the questions that are asked in our 3-year-olds. Sad, it is sad. And all you need is a governor who says we're going to lead. You don't, look, and some candidates say, I'm going to go in there and do that. Guess what? Don't have the authority. Governors don't have the authority. The House and Senate has the authority. But here's what governors can do, and here's what I'll do. Day one, I'll sit at the governor's desk and say, I want that bill on my desk to eliminate CRT, SEL, and comprehensive sex education. I want it on my desk, and if you don't bring it, I will sign an executive order, which, by the way, is unlawful, but I'm going to do it just to make you all act when I'm talking about our House and Senate. Now, we'll do that. We're also going to do one other thing. People call this the backpack bill. I don't like the backpack bill. Here's what I like. We come up with a value to teach our children the best education, whatever it is. Let's say it's $10,000. Whatever that number is, you as a parent can take that $10,000 and apply it to anywhere you want to go for your child's getting education. So that's number one. Number two, I promise you this, and I mean this sincerely. I mean, people talk, so many people on campaign talk. I believe that we need to take care of our homeless veterans. I really do. And I've stuck my neck out to do that. When you go up to Canton, Ohio, you'll see that I have 5 facilities that I already have in place that I worked very hard to get done that are taking care of 40 homeless veterans, and a couple of those facilities I donated to, because I donated the facilities because I believe we got to take care of homeless veterans. I will tell you this, Joe and I will always say, if any illegal immigrant lands, a plane lands anywhere in the state, they're going to fuel up and turn around and take back off. And I would also promise you this, that we're not taking refugees in until we take care of our homeless veterans. All right? So that's number 2. Number 3, when it comes to the election system, we do need a voter ID. I don't know why anybody doesn't talk about it enough. I I don't know why our legislature would push for it. I will tell you one thing, because I heard of all the election issues. I'll tell you a little funny story. This goes off track a little bit. But I'm the chairman of the Medina County Republican Party. Now somebody would say, how did you get that job? All right, because I'm not in the establishment. Well, let me tell you how I got it, because it leads to another story. So we were looking for a new chairman in the county, and people kept coming at me, we want you to be chairman, we want you to be chairman. No, leave me alone, not going to do it. Leave me alone. And then I get a call on a Sunday night. And on that Sunday night, the chairman who was resigning says, Renacci, I know a lot of people want you to be chairman. I know they want you to be chairman. And I said, stop. I'm not interested. Leave me alone. I'm going to be running for governor. He goes, good, because I just got off the phone with Jane Timpkin, and she said, do whatever you can to stop Renacci from being chairman. And on Friday, the governor called me and said, I want you to do whatever you can to stop Renacci from being chairman. He said, so I'm glad you're not running. You know what I said? You know what, Chuck? I think you changed my mind. So I jumped in, and you know what he did? He said, I'm going to go to the Central Committee. I'm going to tell everyone what I heard from the governor and the chairman, Jane Timpkin. I said, you do that. I'm not even a member of the Central Committee. I'm not even allowed to go. State your case. I don't want the job, but go fight to stop me from getting it. So he did. He went to the meeting, and he told everybody in attendance, we need to stop Renacci because Jane Timpkin doesn't want him. We need to stop Renacci because Dewine doesn't want him. And 65 members got a vote, and I won 59-7. I became the chairman. Now, why that's important is because I also changed our party. And now, I can tell you, our party, I got left with $6,000, now we have $150,000. But here's what was most important about that. I appointed myself to the Board of Elections, which you can do. And I actually served on the Board of Elections from March of last year until January this year. So I got a chance to actually see how it works. I got to see the safeguards. I got to see everything. Here's what I would tell you. We probably don't, look, there's no system that is perfect. And I'll also tell you, and I think you're talking about ballots, paper ballots. I got a real problem with 30,000 paper ballots and people counting them, because I don't know how you're ever going to justify the different ones. And by the way, you don't like Renacci, you just crumble up that one, stick it under the table, or crumble up that one, stick it under the table. I can tell you what Medina County does. Medina County, you go to a machine, you vote. And then the paper ballot comes out. And all counties are different. I understand. All counties are different. That paper ballot comes out, and you look at it. You now have a ballot. You confirm whether those are who you voted for and those people aren't who you voted for. And then you take that ballot over and you put it in another machine. You put it in the machine, nobody else does, and then that machine counts it, right? And you stand there. That machine then is what tallies everything up. I will also tell you in Medina County, that machine then has to be, if there were 10,000 people came in and voted that day, there's got to be 10,000 votes in that machine. The only way they justify it is for Republican and Democrat both to have a key to open it up, say 10,000 votes, yeah, and then they download the 10,000 votes on a key, because nothing is computerized now, or internet accessible. Now, I know people will say it can be. It's against the law to have an internet-capable machine in Ohio. I'm not defending the machines. I'm only telling you the details of what I've learned. And then the Republican and Democrat cannot leave each other until they take that little thumbtack, which has those votes, up to the Board of Elections, together with two keys, open up the machine, plug in the votes, and see 10,000 votes get added to the count. Now, could there be problems? Sure there could be problems. Absolutely. There could be problems with any election system. But here's how Joe and I are going to fix it. Number one, we're going to have voter ID. Number two, I'm going to call for forensic audits on a regular basis. Random, oh look, I'm a CPA too. So I can tell you this. As a CPA, we used to go into companies who said their machines were watertight. And what we would do is we would test their machines, run analytics, do confirmations. Those are all the things. Do I think we need audits in Ohio? Sure we do. I do believe that. That's the only way we're going to make sure that our election process has integrity. And as Joe and I, if you are so willing to elect us, I promise you we will make election integrity one of our top 6 issues. Number four, which is so important, is life. I'm telling you, there are a lot of people that get up on stage who have never run before and say, I'm pro-life. And you know what you gotta ask them? What have you done before you got up on that stage? Did you ever go to a pregnancy center and support a pregnancy center? Did you ever stand in a life chain? Did you ever stand with the Catholic Church? See, I'm a Catholic. By the way, I always tell people, you know, Dewine. Biden says he's a practicing Catholic. Pelosi says she's a devout Catholic. Renacci's a faithful Catholic. All right, I believe in the Catholic doctrine. Now, I've stood in lifelines. I've done all those things long before I stood up on this stage in my first election and said I'm pro-life. When people stand up and say they're pro-life, ask them the question, have you ever stood in a lifeline? Hey, by the way, have you ever gone to a pregnancy center and done anything to support them? When they say no, but they're pro-life, you got to wonder whether they really are pro-life or they're just running as pro-life. Joe and I are so pro-life that we are going to appoint a protector of the unborn in our administration. And that is how strong the pro-life we are. And I will tell you, when it comes to the Second Amendment, and I already used this line, I'm going to be extremely one who says, you're not taking my gun. I'm the governor. You're not taking my gun off me, because I'm going to fight till the dying breath to hold that gun. And I think you would rather have somebody like that protecting your Second Amendment than a guy just talking about it. And finally, here's what I would promise you. I will make sure that your rights are never taken away from you. When it comes to masks, this is what's important. You want to wear a mask? You wear a mask. And if somebody's making fun of you because you're wearing a mask, I'm going to come over to that person and say, shame on you. Because if that person wants to wear a mask, that's their right. And people get called rhinos all the time. You know what a rhino is? A rhino is a person who laughs at the person who's wearing a mask. Because as long as they're not forced to wear a mask and they're wearing it on their own, that's their decision and their right, and nobody should take it away from them. And if you're making a lifeline, hey, by the way, have you ever gone to a pregnancy center and done anything to support them? When they say no, but they're pro-life, you got to wonder whether they really are pro-life or they're just running as pro-life. Joe and I are so pro-life that we are going to appoint a protector of the unborn in our administration. And that is how strong the pro-life we are. And I will tell you, when it comes to the Second Amendment, and I already used this line, I'm going to be extremely one who says, you're not taking my gun. I'm the governor. You're not taking my gun off me, because I'm going to fight till the dying breath to hold that gun. And I think you would rather have somebody like that protecting your Second Amendment than a guy just talking about it. And finally, here's what I would promise you. I will make sure that your rights are never taken away from you. When it comes to masks, this is what's important. You want to wear a mask? You wear a mask. And if somebody's making fun of you because you're wearing a mask, I'm going to come over to that person and say, shame on you. Because if that person wants to wear a mask, that's their right. And people get called rhinos all the time. You know what a rhino is? A rhino is a person who laughs at the person who's wearing a mask. Because as long as they're not forced to wear a mask and they're wearing it on their own, that's their decision and their right, and nobody should take it away from them. And if you're making fun or pointing a finger at somebody who's wearing a mask because they want to, shame on all of us. That's what a rhino is. And when it comes to the vaccination, same thing. If you want to get the vaccination, you should get the vaccination. If you don't want to get the vaccination, you should not be forced into it. But nobody should be pointing a finger. I get so tired when somebody took a picture of me with a mask on because I was getting on an airplane and says, well, he's a rhino because he's got a mask on. You know what? You want to drive 15 hours for a 1-hour meeting in Florida? Well, neither did I. So I wore a mask. And somebody said, shame on you, you should have driven 16 hours. You know what? You want to drive 16 hours down and back? You do it. My choice. I wore the mask because I wanted to get down. Do I believe that we should be forced to wear a mask? No. But I also believe you You should wear a mask if you want. You shouldn't wear it if you don't want to. And in the end, same as a vaccination, nobody should be forced to get a vaccination. I promise you, that's the administration you're going to have with the Renacci team, and I hope we can get your support. Look, one last thing. There's a lot of polls out there. Polls are just points in time. And polls are just, okay, we picked 200 people, or we picked 400 people this day. Every poll can be different. Here's the one that I'm most proud of. We hired a company. There's 900,000 voters, Republican voters in this state. That's how many people are going to vote. Now you say, where do you get that number? Well, we have the machinery. We have in fact, does anybody know who Brad Porskell was? Yeah. Brad Porskell was Donald Trump's campaign manager. He is our senior advisor. So we have all of this data. What we found out is, last election there were 824,000. We're expecting about 900 to 950,000 primary voters this year. I heard it, and so we know who you are. We know what your name is. We know where you live. We know your phone number. We know everything. So we started calling. We started calling 900,000 people. I hired a company to do it. Here's what I'm proud of. This is the best poll you can get, because it's not 200 people, it's not 400 people, it's not 800 people. We called 900,000 people. And out of those 900,000 people, we got 156,000 people to answer the question. And the question was, if the election was today, this was just last week, would you vote for Dewine, Renacci, or one of the other candidates? And I can tell you what the response was. 44.7% Renacci, 37% Dewine, and 19% the other candidates. I am telling you, that is the best poll you could have. And if you really want to remove Mike Dewine, how many people in here want to remove Mike Dewine? Well, if you want to remove Mike Dewine, we have to come together. We have to realize there's one candidate, a team that can get this done, and we do it once and for all. That doesn't mean the other people that ran are bad people. It just means the problem with conservatives are we all break up and go different directions. Well, I don't like him because he didn't smile at me, or I don't like him because he didn't shake my hand. He walked right by me. I mean, think about some of those things I hear. Well, I don't like him because this commercial or that commercial. I don't like him because I heard this or that. You now have a chance tonight to ask me any question you want. But don't just believe what you hear. You heard a story. My background is wide open. I promise you, Renacci will make this state one of the powerhouses, but we need you all to come together behind us and we can win. Let's have